good morning, good afternoon for those of you over in the East Coast. I'm Laura Torres here with Blue Star Careers. Today we have an incredible webinar, very learning, very skill driven, but also inspiring for those future educators. We have two incredible guests, and I hope that you can join us and you can support with your questions, your comments, as well as with your paying it forward with other military spouses, future educators who may be exploring a way for them to a career. So let's talk about Montessori education. So that's what the webinar is all about today. Montessori education is a method of education that is based on self-directed activities, hands-on learning, and collaborative play. And of course, our experts today will probably clarify it and add more to that in just a few minutes. But we're on a mission here at Blue Star Careers to support future educators looking for their next calling with an opportunity to make a great impact. And what a great impact they can do by supporting our kiddos, our future generations of our today's world. So now the demand for trained Montessori teachers is at its peak right now. It's almost all across the countries and the world. Montessori schools are just, public or private, are gradually increasing in numbers. And that's why this is a great way for you to really start exploring as we continue to navigate this COVID and a lot of our communities continue to open up, and the increase for child education and also for daycare support becomes completely more aware and in demand. It's a great way for you to also, as a career seeker, look into opportunities as such. So as we pay it forward, I would love to also call on our audience to please tag another educator, future spouse who is looking to explore these kind of opportunities in your network. Please post your questions or comments for our guests, and we will highlight these towards the end. So thank you, everyone who is joining right now. Please tell us where are you watching from, because we are in over 11 communities through our Facebook, social media, LinkedIn, YouTube. I mean, you name it. We're all in all of our Blue Star Families communities. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in our guest, and I'm going to have them do a brief introduction of what they do. So welcome, Telisha Thomas, Department of Defense Liaison to Higher Ground Education. Thank you. And of course, Joel Mendes, who is the Executive Director of Higher Ground Education as well. Welcome. How are you guys doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah.
Telisha, tell us about yourself and what is your great role over at Higher Ground Education. And I'll be right with you, Joe.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I am, first and foremost, I guess most relevant, I am a military spouse. And my role with Higher Ground Education and Guidepost Montessori is to connect the organization with Department of Defense and military communities throughout the country. Guidepost Montessori and High Ground Education are committed to the military family. And so as that interest from the military community grows, the need for awareness and connection between them and the military community also extends. So that's why I'm here. But it's exciting to be part of such a dynamic team while still being able to service my military community in the capacity of a military spouse.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you for your support and for your community involvement, because this is indeed a very exciting, because it is a very mission driven, and you are creating a great pathway for future generations, through your work, whether that is by applying or providing great educational tracks for our kids, as well as for those career-minded military spouses who are looking for a great career in a mission. And now I'm going to go over to Joel. Thank you, Joel. Tell us about you and your direct impact or involvement with Higher Ground Education.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm a career educator. Actually, I started teaching high school and wanting to change the world by having educational opportunities open up in new ways, innovative ways. And it was actually shortly after I started that I realized high school is pretty late and we can do a lot with children a lot earlier. And I never really expected it, but I started growing younger in the children that I was working with and found Montessori education as something that was a little bit of a hidden gem in that whole educational landscape. And it really spoke to what I wanted for my own children. I'm the father of 3 kids. And I wanted my children to be resilient and problem solvers and people who can think for themselves with a shred of independence, but by trusting experts and others around them who can offer them some great advice. And Montessori education was that for me. And so when I found that as both an educator and as a parent, I thought, why is it so small? And why are there not a lot of educators who really know what Montessori education is? And that led me to my work with Higher Ground Education, which is a parent organization of Guidepost Montessori schools, which is a network of about 85 schools across the country, providing opportunities for children in all sorts of different communities around, in our great country, to receive an education that's thoughtful and scientifically based and leads to those outcomes I wanted for my own children. And my specific expertise is helping other adults learn how they could be Montessori educators themselves, learn the methodology through formal and informal training and learning opportunities. And as you mentioned, demand for Montessori teachers is at an all-time high. I'd love to sort of introduce people to the approach and give them the skills so that they can work with children in that methodology.
Wonderful. Where were you when I was raising young kids?
Exactly.
Moving across. I'm sure you get this from parents who come to your facilities or who come in more aware of your services, because we're always looking for that great opportunity to reinforce better pathways for our kids and help them achieve a better future, better than what we or perhaps ourselves and our parents guided us with. Now, but I do have a question though, Telisha, and this is all direct to you now. Your title, DoD Department of Defense Liaison. How are you connected? How is Higher Ground connected to the DoD, and how does that serve? If you can just clarify that for me,
Yeah,
somebody else asked me
well,
earlier today.
yeah, we have a few of our schools that are actually connected to military communities. We have
Really?
a Bay Meadows campus in Jacksonville, Florida, which is near the Naval Air Station in Jacksonville. We also have the San Antonio Vineyards location near the Joint Base Langley, Joint Base San Antonio in San Antonio, and then we have the Leavenworth campus, which is literally located right outside the gates at Fort Leavenworth. So, in an effort to make sure that we are reaching out to the military communities and making those connections, and we've made efforts to hire military spouses, but also offer a different option in terms of education for military connected students. So for me, it was particularly exciting when this opportunity presented itself, because having raised two sons throughout, my husband's military career, it can be challenging. You're moving from place to place. Curriculums are changing every time you register your child in a school. And one of the unique things about Guidepost Montessori is that not only in terms of the career being portable, but the education itself is portable. So when I've gone and actually toured the campuses, the Guidepost campuses here in the Virginia area, one thing that I noticed was that the entire setup was consistent no matter what location you went to. So if my child got started in San Antonio, but we moved to Virginia, there wouldn't be a lapse in their education. And so that's just very attractive to me as a military spouse. And I'm like, gee, I have two college students now, but what a benefit this would have been for me. And it just would have alleviated a lot of stress and angst that I had as a mom. So, I mean, I'm just excited to be able to partner with them to explain the value that this adds to the military community, to military families, the military connected students, as well as the career opportunities for military spouses.
That's incredible. Again, where were you when I was guiding all these young adults, right? The now young adults, but this is a great opportunity. So thank you for clarifying that, because you are like two in one. You have a great mission, a much greater mission, of course, is to focus on the military community, but also to provide great opportunities through Guided Post, for our kiddos. So Joe, what can we expect, or what is Montessori Guidepost education? Tell us a little bit more about that and how you particularly yourself, you're very involved in this.
Sure. Yeah. It's as Telisha was saying, it's very portable, and the reason it's very portable is because there's consistency in the learning materials that children use in order to understand concepts. So, that's a little vague, but basically everything that the children learn, they learn in a very hands-on, tactile, experiential way. So, for example, if you're teaching a young child what addition is, you will give them, a quantity of a certain thing that they can touch and count, beads, for example, and another quantity of beads, and they'll count each one, and they'll determine how many beads are in the first pile, how many beads are in the second pile, and then we'll tell them, guess what? We're going to push them together, and we're going to count, and we're going to get a new number. And that, when we do that, that's addition. And we can teach that to a 4-year-old child, so they're really understanding the concept of addition. And then, everything else in their whole sort of learning scope is done in a similar way, where they'll touch, feel, and understand something with all their senses, and then put it together into the abstract concept that it is. And each individual, part of the magic of a Montessori education is that each individual child has his or her own learning path that's independent from everybody else's. So they're a part of a learning community, but each child is moving at his or her own speed in these consistent series of lessons that the children will get over the course of their education. So what that means is, if I'm transferring from San Antonio to Virginia, like Telisha was talking about, not only am I going to walk into an environment that is a similar feel and look, and I can immediately have a sense of comfort from walking into something familiar, my teacher there can also understand, where am I in my trajectory of learning and what's next for me based on where I am, not based on where the rest of the class is. So there's no catching up. There's no sort of slowing down for others to catch up or anything like that. You just move on your own pace. And the teachers are experts in understanding, where is everybody? So that's where the sort of specialized training and career development comes in, is how would you possibly have 30 kids and have a lesson plan that's individualized for each one? It sounds hard until you learn how we do it. It's not actually that hard. But there is a specialized training to be able to, implement this full system of learning. And one of the things that I love about it, if I were to answer your question in a slightly different way, what is the Montessori approach? Well, it's based on a scientific understanding of how children develop and how their needs change over time. So, what a 3-year-old needs is very different than what an 8-year-old needs, which is very different than what a 13-year-old needs. We know this. And yet, if you look at the educational environments for children growing up, it doesn't actually look that different across all of those different ages in more sort of mainstream schooling. In the Montessori approach, we've understood how a child's mind works at those different stages in development, and then we create the educational environment that maps on to how the child needs to learn at that age in their development. And that's why it's sort of easy to individualize and customize the experience for each child along the way.
That's fabulous. That's so great. That's so reassuring to hear. That even though you will be relocating and you will be perhaps experiencing that gap, also the gap, because our kiddos also experience that gap in education and trying to catch up. There's a great way for them to stay consistent with their learning through this method. But let's talk about careers. So how are those careers,
Sure.
or who are those perfect individuals that can help our kiddos or our community members can keep that consistency in their education? Who are these particular, educators, teachers? What kind of careers will be available through your, method of this particular pathway or method of schooling industry?
Sure. So we have positions starting from an assistant teacher position to a lead teacher position to school administrators and school leaderships. And the assistant teacher position is available to anybody who shows interest in children. The children in our schools start as young as 6 weeks old, and they go all the way up through. We do have high schools. The majority of our programs are preschool and elementary school focused. However, we do have programs for children older, as I mentioned. And anybody who who has an interest in helping with child development or helping with the care and education of young children, this is a great foot in the door position. All you would need in order to be eligible for this position is to make sure that you qualify for state licensing requirements for anybody who's working with young children. All 50 states have different requirements, so I apologize for not being able to give just the bullet point list. But essentially, It's usually a health and safety, CPR, first aid type coursework, a class or two on child development and family relations. And that's just to get into the door. And then from that point on, there is specialized career training in order to be a Montessori educator, where how do you not just work with young children or children in general, but how do you apply this methodology? And actually, all of that training is very specialized. People pay $10,000 to $15,000 to become a certified Montessori teacher. However, if you work at Guidepost Montessori or any higher ground school, we have a training program that is totally free of charge for anybody who is working even in that assistant teacher position, preparing for a lead teacher position, or a school leadership position in administration as well. So it's you can get started probably in a month if you wanted to have a career change. A lot of the people who do look to work at Montessori schools really find it through their own children. So a lot of the teachers in our schools are mothers or fathers of young children who they've seen the benefit of Montessori education firsthand, and they'd like to sort of help bring that to other families that are out there. But really, if you love kids and you're willing to learn, it's open for you. We'd love to have you. And we have, like I said, all sorts of learning and training opportunities in-house that, by the way, are not just that are qualified to have you work at Montessori schools outside of our network as well. One thing that's a little bit unclear all the time is I've seen a lot of Montessori schools. Are they all related to each other? And the answer is no, not necessarily. The Montessori name represents the Montessori approach to learning. And then there are a lot of operators of Montessori schools. So Guidepost Montessori Schools is actually the largest network of Montessori schools in the country. And we do have schools in lots of locations like Telisha was talking about. But our training is actually recognized at many schools outside of our network as well. So let's say you're stationed in San Antonio and you're not moving to Virginia where we have a school, but you're moving to Idaho where we don't. Your qualifications from the training and the experience you gain in our schools may transfer to another Montessori opportunity even outside of our network as well.
This is great. That's a great incentive, to be able to retrain and keep up with your education and your skills and stay competitive within your career. And then you offer that at absolutely no cost. That's a huge perk for our military spouse community. Now I'm going to direct this to Telisha and ask you to put your military spouse hat and ask you, in your view, why are these such a great opportunities for our military spouse community?
I'm glad you asked, because I was going to jump in and add on to this if you didn't ask me. In my opinion, this is huge for military spouses because, as Joel mentioned, you get this great quality training program that is worth, thousands of dollars. And if you're an employee of Guidepost Montessori, it is offered to you for free. That's huge. But also they have a very comprehensive benefits package. And so, as military spouses, we're kind of tethered to our soldier and the benefits package that comes along with he or she. And so it's nice to kind of be able to have ownership of, some medical, dental insurance that we bring to the table. So that brings, more options and things like that to the table. So that's outstanding. But then the other thing that's really neat, and I was just like, wow, again, the question comes up, where was Guidepost Montessori back when I was raising my two boys? If you are an employee here, you get up to 2 children to attend the school. You get a tuition assistance for up to 75% off. So not only are you working for a great company, but your children can take advantage of this outstanding educational offering at a huge discount. Okay. So that's just, a win-win for a military family. I would love to be able to, and actually several military spouses, I actually do this. They will work at the school that their children attend. So, we're offering that. So
I am speechless because that is such an incredible, and again, another incentive that I know that it's incredibly, it shows a lot of great support for our community because you are navigating your career path. You're trying, especially if you are into education, and this is a way for you to explore. You get to explore great careers, great mission, And then while at the same time you get to do it while you also navigating the great education options for your with your kids, with your kiddos. And I think that's perhaps a good peace of mind for a lot of our community members that they might be looking into this type of industry, or they might not necessarily explore it in the past. And this will be a great way for them to perhaps peek into what opportunities do I have. Now, Joe, I know that we were discussing earlier today. Now, can my career be portable if I PCS, either whether it's directly with you guys, and I think you did mention that, Montessori training you will be doing, but can you touch a little bit more on that? Would my career be a little bit more portable if I PCS, and what are some of those options that you guys offer?
Yeah, certainly. And the ideal portability of the situation would be transferring within our network of schools. Because if you were to move from one location where we have a school to another location where we have a school, the transfer is seamless. Your employment, there's no break in your employment. It's totally on your timeline, in order to move and not have to spend the time, finding finding a school for your children and finding a job for yourself. That would obviously make that a lot smoother of a transition there. You would have to, as I mentioned earlier, be in sort of licensing compliance for whatever new state or location that you move into. But we have support systems. We can't do that training ourselves. It's all run by the different states and different operators within the states. But we do have all of the playbooks and toolkits and everything that you would need in order to make sure that you would be license compliant in whatever state you are moving in. Most states, the transfer is seamless. There's nothing else you have to do. You may have to take a community college course somewhere along the way. But we would have that knowledge, so you wouldn't have to do that research yourself. And like I said, with the Montessori specific training and expertise, not only can you move, you will be highly sought after. There are not enough Montessori educators out there for the increasing demand that parents have for Montessori schools for their children. If you looked at industry trends, which none of you would, but I do because I'm a nerd in that way, you would see that the percentage of early childhood schools and public schools that are Montessori schools is not just steadily increasing, but it's increasing exponentially. It's still a very small number, but it is increasing everywhere. And if you just drove around, now that I've said Montessori, the word, enough times, next time you're driving around your community, you're going to see a few Montessori schools. And if you knocked on their door and said, I'm Montessori trained, they will kiss your feet and welcome you in because it is such a niche expertise. And that's really what separates out people in job markets is I have this knowledge and background that rarely other people do. Then, that's when the portability and the access to the careers is wide open.
Great. Thank you for that. And let me just really quick recap for our audience who's joining us. And again, we are in multiple communities. So some of you show on our system that you are watching, others don't. So if you're watching, please tell us where you're watching from. We want to send you a shout out, as well as if you have any specific questions or comments, please put them down. We will highlight those in a few minutes. We're here talking about Montessori education as well as careers in this field with Telisha Thomas, who is the Department of Defense Liaison to Higher Ground Education, and Joel Mendes, who is the Executive Director of Higher Ground Education. And both of them, incredible, passionate educators, training us, telling us how you, the military spouse, can make this a portable career, as well as influence your kids' learning and education by getting them access to Montessori schooling. It just, again, where were they? Where was this option for some of our older military spouses that are now a little bit more towards, older kids? But thank you for watching. And again, post your questions. We would love to be able to highlight those for you at the end. Now, what is the process, Joe? Walk us. One of the things we like to simplify with some of these webinars for our audience is, what is the process of, let's say I'm interested, I want to apply, what is the process for a hiring or onboarding look like for a candidate?
Great. So first thing to do is go to our careers page, which I think we'll put on the screen in just a second. Yep, there it is. guidepostmontessori.com/careers. It's pretty easily navigable, where you can choose your location, you could choose the positions you're interested in applying to, which, by the way, we've talked a lot about teachers. Sure. There are also school leadership, administrative roles, roles to be in management and so forth, that don't necessarily require previous experience with Montessori education. So don't be afraid to apply to a job that you feel is a bit of a stretch, because let's say it's a stretch, but you get access to it and you can step up to that challenge. We love when people have that sort of drive. But even if you are, shooting for the moon and you reach the stars, you may get another position that is sort of that right pathway for you as well. So just go there, navigate where you would be interested in exploring jobs, and apply. And don't forget to say how you found out about us on the application. Don't forget to say that you are a military family. We look for these on our applications as markers of people who have the mindset that really jives with the culture at our schools of growing and learning and serving the community. From there, you'll get an interview with probably an online interview, where we're just looking for who you are and your interest and love of children and caring for the growth of others. As I mentioned, we have extensive training opportunities, I really should say. So the knowledge of the Montessori approach, if you have it, great. If you don't have it, we're looking for people who have the right perspective on work and children and who would fit with, like I said, our values. If that's who you are, apply. We'll love to talk to you. We'd bring you to one of our schools. You can tour it. You can see and learn about Montessori education firsthand. And then we'll guide you on the pathway to get licensed and certified, which, like I said, is not a long process. Don't get worried about that, and get you working with children.
So I imagine that maybe perhaps while you are waiting for any formal certifications or credentialing or that sort of process, you can maybe perhaps get working or start working in a different field, in a different role within the schooling, right? The school system. Because like you mentioned, you offer others that are not necessarily for teachers, but you have tons of other job career opportunities that are part of the system.
We do. We have positions in all sorts of back-end support roles. So we have a network of, like I mentioned, about 85 schools. We have about 3,000 employees. So everything that goes into supporting all of our employees and all of the students that go to our schools, we have jobs in human resources, in talent development, in operations and finance, and every sort of back end office as well. If the education side of it is something that you would like to support, but with your own specific expertise and skill set, we'd also love to meet you there. And our back office works primarily remotely, which is also another opportunity for military families who may have to move frequently. Telisha is in Virginia. I'm in Austin, Texas. I see a few of you are close to us in College Station in the chat. So hi, Michelle. But we have people literally all over the country and even a few internationally. So like I said, if you like the mission and you feel like you're aligned with our approaches, we'd love to meet you and find the right career opportunity that matches with your skill set and desires.
You said the magic word for some of our community members, although not everybody wants to work remotely, but you do have remote opportunities. So once again, community, if you are looking for a great career with a great impact, particularly because you will be working side by side with a lot of young future leaders of this world, this is a great opportunity for you. You have a calling. This is great, and then you get to hang out with your kiddos. I mean, not literally, but in a good way. You get to supervise, and you get to learn lots of it. Free training. I mean, what can I tell you? I'm almost tempted to go and search for job opportunities there, Joe. So if you see my name out there, please don't tell my boss. No,
I won't tell them a Blue Star yet.
Yes. No, I do want to ask you though, or maybe you, Telisha, if you can. So, for instance, people that don't have necessarily a training, our military spouse community is very highly educated. We have over 60% of us have a bachelor's already. Over 30% or so, or even more, have already completed their master's. Now, if they have a certification or a training or a bachelor's in a different industry that is not completely has anything to do with education, although we all have an educator inside of us, right? So let's say I'm looking at Michelle here, who's listening. She's a nurse, but she wants to do a complete career pivot, and she wants to, enter the field of education. Is that something that you can facilitate, track a little bit better, and help, foster that sort of a pathway for an individual who has a different career path that is not the education, the regular education way.
Yes, actually, and that is part of the prepared Montessorian training. It's part of what that enables a candidate to be able to do. It would be training that would at least get you started within the industry of Montessori education. And then from there, you would continue on and further licenses and things like that to expand your career and your personal career growth within the field. But yeah, and Joel, if you'd like to add some more specifics
Yeah,
onto that.
I would add that it's actually the majority of our educators are in a second career. Most people did not graduate high school and say, my goal is to become a Montessori teacher. Mostly because they're unaware of what that even means, unless they were coming from a Montessori education themselves. So at some point over the trajectory, and I was mentioning earlier, a lot of times it's through being a parent and finding a Montessori school for your children. You find that this speaks to you and you'd like to become an educator. You'd like to switch from being a nurse to a teacher, for example, like Michelle was saying. So you wouldn't be alone. Most people, like I said, come into this. For example, the average age of people in our training program is in their early 30s. That's an average age. So it's not something that you need to start when you're 18. Otherwise, you're behind the eight ball or something like that. We have people learning and growing at any point in their life's trajectory. And like I said, start by working in the schools. The training is then free of charge for you. And then that is your career development path to really become an expert in a new field.
Great, thank you. Now, I do have some question here from Mary and perhaps a few others that are a little bit shy right now to post their questions, but how can you filter the location to remote positions only, if that's the only option right now at the moment that we have?
So on the Guidepost Montessori website, guidepostmontessori.com/careers, there should be a filter for our virtual school. So our virtual school is one for children who are studying from home, as many people decided that this was best for their family these days. And so the faculty of that school location, it's not located in any single place, but that school location are all remote educators and remote school administrators. You could also go to our parent organization's website, which I don't know if we can get on the screen anymore, but it's tohigherground.com/careers as well. Oh, great. Thank you for putting that up. And this is where you will find those back office support positions that are remote as well. So this wouldn't be the pathway to become a Montessori educator, but this would be a pathway to become, somebody who works in operations supporting our Montessori schools, or finance, or HR, or all of the sort of traditional departments that you need in order to run an organization like ours. And all of these jobs actually have remote opportunities.
Perfect. Thank you. But, of course, by all means, I think, if you had a chance to actually be in person on spot, right, for, to oversee the growth of your own children, why not take advantage of these great opportunities? Again, where were you, Joe, when I was looking for a good career?
And to be honest, I wish I could be walking you all through a Montessori school at this point, because the hook is really that the children are capable of so much more than we generally imagine they're capable of. You can walk into a classroom of children, between first and third grade, and they're dividing decimals, and they're, diving deep into the Greek and Roman history and asking really curious and thoughtful questions. Or you can go into a classroom of 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, and they're like cleaning up the spill that they had on the ground themselves. They're not just crying and asking for help, or they're able to serve snack to their community. They're able to do higher level math that you wouldn't expect children of that size to be doing. So the Montessori approach really allows children to move at their own speed, and some of those children just blow your mind with what they're capable of in those situations. So I agree, Laura, if you can go into one of our schools, even if you prefer to work remotely, if you have a chance to visit our schools, there's so much inspiration you can draw from what young people are capable of. And that's what keeps me driven all the time.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead,
that
Telisha.
is, to what Joel has said, I like I mentioned earlier when I went in for the tour, the environment was just so inspirational to me as an adult. You just, really do wish and yearn for your child to be in an environment like that. So I volunteered extensively throughout, my husband's career, and up until I got this job, I was still volunteering. And I've always volunteered in my son's schools and their classrooms. And, you always kind of leave away from those things like, oh, we had a nice day. And, oh, you kind of form this little relationship with the kids. But when you're in an environment like that with the Montessori education, and you look at how, the children are experiencing their own personal growth and learning and kind of having ownership of it, it's really a remarkable thing to see. But like I said, it's just kind of an inspiring and nurturing environment, but not only for the children, but for the employees. Every time I've gone to a Guidepost campus, the employees are very calm. There's just this overall sense of calm in the campus, just, like that. I'm not going to say a laid back approach because they're very much, in tune with what is going on. But you never have this feeling of angst and fast paced and, disorganization and chaos, so it just, to me, is an inspiring environment for the student and the teacher.
You want to probably call it, like I always say, the drama. You are about to enter the drama zone solution.
The drama-free zone, yeah.
Drama free zone, yes.
Yeah.
Because because kids are learning, they're happy, they're content.
Hmm.
Teachers are calm, are at peace, they're loving their job, and I mean, why not, right? Create this. I imagine probably Telisha or Joel, when you have visited some of these classrooms, you probably feel like you want to be a kid again because you want to reinforce some of those activities, or just get on, hands on, and do some of the activities with the kiddos, and just and learn again, because it's such an incredible, it's such a powerful way for you to continue on to just to feel alive, and when you're always learning and you're always finding new ways, meaningful ways to create a much greater impact. So please post your questions, tell us your comments. If you have a story to share, we would love to really be able to highlight you and where you're watching. We're talking about careers with higher ground education as well as guided Montessori, who are there's it's two in one. So describe to us a little bit more. I know you did throughout the webinar, but some of those audience members that might be just now joining, what is the difference, higher ground education and guided Montessori, guided post Montessori?
Sure. Higher Ground Education is our parent organization. That's our mission is to bring Montessori education to children from age birth to all the way to high school. And we do this in several different ways. Guidepost Montessori is the network of schools. So we also have a lot of services to help support other Montessori schools and other educators there to do research into Montessori education. So we do lots of different things, but the Guidepost Montessori is our actual school network of schools from age birth to our elementary schools. We also do have a network of middle school and high schools, which we haven't talked about yet. It's called the Academy of Thought and Industry. And so the Higher Ground Education is the parent organization for all of these different projects, each of which is looking to move forward the opportunities for children to get a Montessori education. In their lives.
So I just had like if I was to be an educator, a long time educator, this is like this is a road that will never I will never maximize the ongoing opportunities in career growth, because you just described from birth all the way to high school, plus all the way to now, pivoting to maybe be the behind the scenes supporting the whole structure of the growth, the learning, the methodology, the process of reinforcing the education in the Montessori system, and then becoming, if you're an experienced educator by then you might want to be behind the scenes through higher ed. Oh, so all I gotta say right now is wow, right? Wow, to some of community members out there that might be just thinking, still exploring, please take a moment to write down the link. It's right here for higher grad education. And then, of course, if you are already an active educator and you're looking for your next calling here and you want to get on campus, like now, there is the link for you to go on and find your next career path. Go in and schedule, perhaps, just like Joel said, as a parent, go in incognito and go in as a
Yes.
and explore first the environment, and then apply it and go and explore the opportunities. But also send us your questions. Get connected with Telisha Thomas. I put on her name right here. You can find her on LinkedIn. Telisha Thomas. She's also Army military spouse. Sorry, I was just going to say. I was just about to make you a Marine Corps spouse. Army military spouse. She's a DoD liaison for higher grad education. And then, of course, Joel Thomas, who is a great friend. He's been a friend of ours here for a little over a year, Executive Director of Higher Grad Education. Also find him on LinkedIn and connect with him, explore different opportunities, send your questions to our careers, and then also join our Spouseforce virtual community. If you're not familiar yet, you can join our Spouseforce virtual community. And that's where we all usually post all of the updates. Yesterday, by the way, Telisha, we highlighted you as an employer spotlight. We posted 3-4 different links, graphics, all of the flyers that you had sent about the hiring opportunities that are available through the different communities. And so our members can find them and they can go and explore. And these are all posted through our virtual community on Facebook as well as on LinkedIn. So if you're looking for a job and you're still not sure, you can go in any future updates of immediate hiring opportunities that Telisha is able to notify me. You be sure that you will find those at the Spouseforce virtual community. So, okay, team. So as we get close to wrap it up here and highlight in last comments here, I do want to acknowledge here that Michelle highlighted, and so she's thanks you for being able to give her the opportunity to perhaps open up new opportunities. So she's going to look into opportunities in her area. So thank you.
Great.
And then I also have Brittany, it's amazing. She has actually explored the Montessori system. So that's great.
You can see she has a master's degree in education too, so she knows what she's talking about when she chose.
Come and apply, Michelle. Don't keep it to yourself there. Now I see somebody else out here asking a question. You're looking for talent specialist. What is the type of position? I mean, just briefly, what are you looking for? Or is this something that you yourself looking, or is part of your team? You can be able to elevate the visibility for this candidate. That's for Amy.
Yeah, and hiring for a talent specialist, I would say, is hiring for any one of our positions. We're really looking for like-minded people who fall in love with the approach of working with children the way that we do, who have shared goals for what they want, who they want children to be, and they can live the life that they would be happy for our students to model their own lives after as they're growing up. So definitely communication is number one in a talent specialist. You've got to be clear and exciting when you're sharing the benefits of our program with potential employees. But then somebody who's willing to learn and understand what makes the approach and what makes our organization distinct and special, and is willing to, work hard to find the other people who are out there who are also aligned in this approach. Absolutely. It's actually not super distinct from everything else too. We have training and learning opportunities. If you have an expertise, a knowledge base that you're bringing to the table, great. We'll try to see if we have careers that align with what your own passions and expertise have been. But also, as we mentioned, if you'd like to take a leap in some new arena, we're also happy to help with that training and placement as well for the right candidates.
Absolutely. The thing here is to find a good mission and a good organization that is back you up for your long-term career goals, and then get your foot in the door and explore different opportunities, and then just again you're working side by side for the future leaders of our community. So helping supporting our kids, I think whether you do it through talent acquisition at home, behind the scenes, or actually as an instructor, as a teacher, an educator in the classroom, I think it's a great way for you to really enjoy some great career growth and an amazing pathway. So now we're getting ready to wrap up here. Telisha, I just want to give you a few minutes to anything. What's the next call to action for you? How can we support you in our military spouses also support themselves through these incredible opportunities that you have, lead the different opportunities to our community?
Yeah, I would just say, please take into consideration everything we've shared today in terms of the wonderful opportunities that we have available for careers to, the opportunity to work for a very dynamic and fast growing company, a company that is partnering with the military community, working on building a location in a military installation near you. Also, the opportunity to be able to have a career for a company that offers a very comprehensive and competitive benefits package, um, and as well as provide a different option in terms of educational offerings for military connected students. So, with all things taken into consideration, I think that it is definitely advantageous for a military spouse to consider Guidepost Montessori and Higher Ground Education for their educational and career needs.
Wonderful, thank you. Joe, same to you. Anything last call to action? Any instructions or tips, tricks that you can share to our military spouse community, with the military spouse community that we can go on and put into action?
Yeah, I would just say, don't be afraid to come talk to us. Put in the application, send us emails. We'd love to meet you and either find the right fit within our organization or give sort of advice and all the best wishes if you decide it's not right for you. We're very interested in having people find something that they can connect with for themselves. I know that I'm not a military spouse, but I am a military brother. My brother's been a career Coast Guard guy forever, and his family has had to put on pause every once in a while because of putting career first. And I know that his wife is just now taking her own, it's her time, and she's putting in her own efforts to find the life that she wants. And he's really proud of her for doing that because he's felt this burden of holding her back. And I just want to unleash more people who are in that similar situation. So we have a lot of respect for the efforts that it takes to be a military spouse and to be a military member yourself. And we find that we'd love to team up. We'd love to help you find your own pathway in your own career.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone who has posted your questions, your comments. And if you happen to tumble into this webinar, after it's already done and you watch the replay, please forward your questions to our careers program at careers@bluestarfam.org. You can also, if you're a military spouse, you can also join our Spouseforce virtual community on our Facebook or LinkedIn groups. And that's where we normally post all of the latest careers and activity action that is taking place. For sure, we're going to be highlighting all the immediate career opportunities that Higher Ground Education and Guided Post Montessori have to offer for you guys as well. And so as well as any other updates that you might ask or you might benefit from, they're all going to be at our Spouseforce virtual community. So thank you so much for your support. Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Telisha. Wish you the best. Please keep in touch. Send us the latest of updates, of course, of career opportunities, but also the latest updates of what's going on with you as well, because we want to see you also grow within your own careers and your organizations. Because the more you advance in your own personal growth, the more you can make an impact for our community and pay it forward. So thank you so much for being here and for supporting our webinar. We look forward to once again staying connected with you. Have a good one.
Pleasure's ours, Laura. Thank you so much for having us. Yeah.